Welcome to the Impact Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Coach Andy James. I've put this podcast out here to provide support, guidance, and insight through real life experience that I've learned so that you can impact your life through my lessons. This is raw guidance that will help you evolve your body, brain, business, or career. My purpose is to help you build, grow, and evolve into the best version of yourself to live a healthy, wealthy, fulfilled life. Welcome to this episode. Enjoy. That 1 pound problem, that 1 pound problem, 3,500 calories, exactly what we're talking about. So we're going to put everything out on the table inside of this one and discuss why it is that majority of people seem to struggle getting past what it really takes to produce the result that they're looking for. So 3,500 calories, this is where we're going to start, because we all know by this point, social media, all the information, you can Google it. It's just everybody knows by this point that there's 3,500 calories that need to be expended to burn 1 pound of body fat. Now, there is so many different ways you can go about doing this. And a lot of people, they're getting this slightly wrong, or the expectations versus the reality with regards to what this looks like is being a little bit confused. So it's causing frustrations. So we're going to nail this one down today so that you've got some kind of idea as to what's actually going on. Maybe some things you can have a look into and then realign what it is that you're trying to achieve and the efforts that you are giving to make sure that they are producing a result. So where did this number come from? Well, the 3,500 calories, if you're looking at a 1 pound body fat loss per week, is the number that you need to be aiming for. Calories are a measure of energy. It's a heat that we produce. That's how calories are measured. So we're looking at burning 3,500 calories. That's where the burning part comes from. Now, to get rid of that 1 pound of body fat, I wouldn't say exactly consistently every single week, but you'd be damn near close to that. You've got to expend 3,500 calories, so be in a deficit for the week. This isn't just, I've got to go and burn 3,500 calories and I'll shift above a pound of body fat. No, you've got to be in a deficit by the end of the week from total amount of calories consumed to being a minimum of 3,500 calories more expended than what you've consumed that week. Now, there are so many other variables to bring into this conversation. Things, recovery, sleep, hydration, stress. But we're just simply focusing on what is on the table in front of us when it comes down to the numbers, because I think a lot of people this might rattle somebody's cage today. A lot of people try to cheat these numbers. And when I say cheat the numbers, they try to consume so much information that they know exactly what's going on, but the manipulation behind it is there's a reality that's you've got to face when it comes down to being in a position of burning X amount of body fat, therefore X amount of calories expended per week. So what does it look like? Now, the most common approach is setting a daily average of 500 calories in a calorie deficit per week, per day, to average an output of 3,000 calories per week, 3,500 calories per week. Now, as you're doing this might look different in different ways. This might be you have higher output days from exercise. You might be calorie cycling, where you have high calorie days and low calorie days. However, this 500 calories is made up, there is different ways of doing so, but you have to be in that 500 calorie per day deficit that amounts to the weekly average of 3,500 calories. So as you keep moving forwards week on week, the expectation is that you are measuring these measurable metrics. There's a tongue twister there for you. Say that fast. If you're able to measure these metrics and be accountable to them, this might look like, why am I having to do 12,000 steps to my partner or my friend that's able to do 10,000 steps and they can burn more calories than I can? There is just so many variables when it comes down to this, from activity levels through to height, gender, weight. There's just so many variables. So trying to base everything that you think you know on cheating the system to get to the result that you want as minimal effort as possible, that's the secret. That's the thing that people are getting wrong. There's a reality that there's an uncomfortable place that you've got to face, that to get to where you want to be, it's outside of what you're currently doing. So If you aren't seeing the result on the scale every single week, or if there is a lack of consistency in the approach that you're taking, what that might look like is, say you've got a program that's been built for you. Now, speaking from a coach's perspective, if a coach builds somebody a program, that program takes into account health, it takes into account recovery, it takes into account intensity, it takes into account expenditure, calorie expenditure. So we're looking at, by the end of a week, to have amounted as many calories as possible, healthy, but as possible, towards a deficit. Now that might be over 3,500 calories, which majority of the time, to try and create a little bit of a safety net, it probably is, because the body's going to retaliate a bit every now and again, and you will start to see highs and lows and dips and plateaus and all of the, the fun things that come in between. But it doesn't mean that on the weeks where you do 2,000 calories expenditure over the entire week, because on that Friday you had some beers and a pizza and you still expected to see the result, it means that the approach that you're taking is well off the mark when it comes down to what's really required to produce the result that you're looking for. So I say this from the kindest of places and from the wholesomest of hearts, is the efforts that most people give they're not a million miles off the mark, but they're not on the mark with regards to where they think they are. And that's the upsetting thing for a lot of people. Even down to this, and I'll use myself as an example. So there's phases numerous times that I've gone through where I've done very accurate tracking and I've done very loose tracking. There's times where I've increased the intensity of training, which has impacted the recovery phases of training. And also then I've kind of been a little bit off with food and then brought food back into play as well. All of these things combined, basically, and you end up spinning your wheels. You end up working towards what you say you're working towards something, but the reality is there's not a lot that you're actually working towards apart from trying to convince yourself you're doing the work. Now, an honest conversation with yourself will say, am I actually doing the work? Am I really being accountable to all of the metrics, all of the numbers that's having me see a regular, I'm not going to say a week on week regular, but a very consistent result in the sense of, is it going in the direction that I want it to go? If your answer is yes, then you should know that regardless of how many steps that it takes you to burn however many calories you're off by the end of the day from your training session, that's required. It's not, I must hit 10,000 steps because that's the golden ticket or that's the golden rule. It's, if I have to do 11, I have to do 11. If I have to do 13, I have to do 13,000. It's more of a case of doing what's required rather than looking and setting the limits on just being inside of what is required. If you set the limit on what is just in the inside of, that means that you're going to train with probably less intensity than what's really required. You're not going to be mindful of how much you move around day to day. You're possibly leaving a lot of things unmeasured and a lot of guesswork in there just because you may have done the maths behind the scenes and worked out all of the metrics, the X, Y, and Z. This is however many calories that I'm consuming today. Well, did you move much today? Did all of those calories that you consumed, were they 80% wholesome foods? Were they based in a way where it was set up to help you actually win in aid recovery, not just eating food mindlessly within reason, let's say, and then saying, well, I've done some of the work this week, so I deserve to see all of the result. The thing with health, you don't get back 100% if you don't put in 100%. It matches and meets you where you're at. So although this is where a lot of people, and this might get some people riled up, this might be the thing that really makes somebody go, yep, that is today. That is the thing that I really need to pay attention to. And for others, it might go, I didn't need to hear this today. Andy, I didn't need to hear this today. But for somebody that may base a lot of what they do around being intentful at those moments in time and sort of trying to execute with excellence in certain areas, leaves a lot of scope unmeasured in areas that are being shaded. So I like to look at this as like light and dark, shade and light. If you've got a lot of your day that sits in the shade where you may be seated, you may run an office job, or For example, today, point of recording this is a Wednesday. Now, on a Wednesday is a very, very low calorie expenditure day for me. Now, most days, usually in the region of around about 4,000 calories expended. That being said, today I probably won't I'll be very, very close if I even meet my BMR target. So just my basal metabolic rate is usually around about 2,200 calories. At present, in fact, it is currently 4 p.m. and I have burnt 1,818 calories, taking that from my Fitbit at this point. And it's 4 p.m. So looking at today, this has been a day where I'm pretty much office-based. I'm sat in the studio, recording, working at the desk. I've been away probably from the desk for I can tell you how many steps I've done, 4,300 steps, and it's 4 p.m. at this point. Now, if somebody's life was based like this, and they go, well, I train first in the morning or I train last thing at night, and that is the only focus on that day that they're giving attention to try and hit that 500 calorie deficit, you're either going to live a very unhappy life in being in a very low calorie deficit just to be able to try and meet the goals that's required for your body to try and drop some body fat, which isn't a very suggestible way to live, to be honest. It's more of a case of being mindful of how much can you output and then meet yourself kind of in the middle somewhere. You don't want to have all of your calories decreased just from food, just to say that you're meeting target. You want to look at expending some of the calories as well as then dropping some of the calories from a calorie deficit via food. But that being said, I'm 4,300 steps into the day. I'm 1,800 calories burnt. I'll be lucky if I hit my BMR target today because my BMR is normally sitting around about 2,200 calories. Now, that being said, most of the days of the week when I am training, I'm hitting 4,000 calories. So if you take the weekly average on that, I quite easily compensate for the lower days when I'm seated for majority of this. But you have to be very, very mindful when you're looking at your setup like this. So as a coach, and this is a bit of like an inside view from what it is that you might see to what I see on my side of the things, when I'm looking at how a client is progressing moving forwards, there's numerous things that have to come into play. 10,000 steps to one person will not burn the equivalent of 10,000 steps in calories to another person. So if by the end of your day, you're saying, I've hit my 10,000 steps and I'm not moving, the scales just aren't moving, chances are your heart rate wasn't high enough. The effort given to complete those 10,000 steps, it may have taken you an hour and a half to go on a 5-mile walk. You could do that in an hour. But it would mean walking at a quicker pace, therefore a higher heart rate. Therefore, you will potentially push out and expend more calories. But by doing so, it puts you in an uncomfortable state. So doing the walk then isn't a pleasurable thing. There's an intention there. There's a focus. It's ramping the heart rate up to try and demand more from the body, to get the body, to force the body into that, I need to burn calories. I need energy. I need to get through the supplies. So by doing that, what you're doing is you're backing off. You're allowing yourself this comfort zone, this buffer to be able to say, well, I'm doing the 10,000 steps or I'm doing the training session, but is it really putting you on the edge of that limit? Is it really taking you up to the boundaries of where you really need to be? Chances are it's not. And if you haven't ever measured all of your metrics, this is the biggie, do so. Because you may be training, you may be tracking food, you may be tracking your sleep, you may be hitting your 2 to 3 to 4 liters of water in a day. You may be doing all of these things, but do you know exactly how many calories you're expending every single day? Can you truly say you're in a calorie deficit? Chances are for most people, they don't take the level of detail that's required into account when they're measuring all of these numbers. They just go, here's a plan. I'll do the plan. The plan will then tell me by 4, 8, 12 weeks time that I will be X amount of weight. It doesn't work like that. The plan is built in a way that will assist you towards your goal. It's to build new lean tissue underneath so that you do burn more calories. And that's a whole other conversation in itself. Developing muscle mass to burn more calories is a massively effective way of increasing your total calories out without having to do more work. You have to increase the demand for fuel, so more muscle mass. The bigger the engine, the more fuel needed. So therefore, the body requires more calories to burn as fuel. So that being said, all this on the table, what is it that you're really looking at right now? You've got 3,500 calories over the average of the week. So that's 500 calories per day in a deficit. Where is it coming from? Are you expending all of those calories just from one training session? If you are, be mindful about how much you're moving for the rest of the day. If you are literally going to a gym and saying, right, I need to be in a 500 calorie deficit today. I know my basal metabolic rate is 1,500 calories. I need to burn a minimum of 2,000 calories to put me at my BMR today. Well, that's where your 500 calorie deficit is coming in then. Now, does that mean that you're going to be in an optimal window to be dropping that body fat? May not. You may not be. And that being said in itself is a frustration for a lot of people to handle because they don't know where they're going with it. They don't know the measurables. They don't know what needs to be accountable. And then what happens if there is this kind of a plateau and they are scratching their head and they don't know about all these different protocols that you can put into place? There's more than one way to get to where it is that you're looking to go. So don't think that just by following some fad thing that you've seen on social media that says burn 3,000, do these amount of steps or do these amount of bodyweight squats or do these crunches and you will lose 5 pounds in 4 weeks. It's not guaranteed. The only guarantee is if you've got all of those numbers as accurately measured as possible on the table, being prepared to do the work that's required. That's the key statement. Are you prepared to do the work that's required to see the result that you're asking for? So the next time you're looking at maybe a scale weight that's not moved for a while, or you're looking at, I'm tracking food, but I'm not seeing the result, and this is kind of, it's not really having a positive effect on me right now. You need to be very, very mindful of how you've set everything else up around the sole thing that you're focusing on. Most people tend to focus on one thing. They will focus on a training session, so being in a gym, or they will focus on how many steps they've done, or how many calories they consume. There tends to be a singular and granular focus when it comes down to what do I need to do to get to where I want to be. The problem with this is that all the other variables, which matter just as much as the one that you're focusing on, get forgotten about. And you end up missing the mark and you're spinning your wheels for a period of time without actually getting to the goal that you're wanting to achieve. So if that is you right now, and you have been doing this for a long time, you can sustain a way of living by knowing what it is that needs to be done to get to the result that you've been working towards for however many years. But the approach that you've been taking isn't going to be the one that's going to work for you if you keep getting the same result that you've currently got. The approach needs to be different. And with that, I'll invite you to drop me a message. If there's an issue, if there's something that's holding you back, drop me a message. We'll talk about it. We'll go backwards and forwards, and we'll see if we can come up with some kind of solution. But if you aren't seeing what you're looking for, and you're trying to convince yourself by doing the same thing, you will get to where you want to be, how much time are you prepared to waste? And with that thought, I will leave you with that one today. Maybe have an awesome day, whatever time of the day it is, wherever you are right now. Make it the best day possible. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. If you're still here at this point, thank you. I appreciate your support and I hope you got some value from this podcast. If you did, we grow by word of mouth, so sharing this podcast with a friend or to your social media profile would be a huge honor. Thanks again. Hope to catch you in the next one. Take care.